Since I started with reverse glass art, I've always bought my glass from the same company. It's a Norwich-based company called UA Glass, and they're absolutely brilliant, really reasonably priced. The quality of the glass is really good, and the turnaround's quick, and it's a reputable company. So always been happy with them, still am. I'm still going to always use them. But earlier this year, I emailed them for a quote, which I regularly do because I buy my mirrors in bulk. And I was quite surprised at how much more expensive it was. So it was for 19 8x10 inch mirrors. And it came back and it was about £150. So I emailed them back and said, can you give me a quote for just a metre square and I'll cut it myself if it's significantly cheaper? And that came back at £50. So, 2/3 of the cost of the glass is going on the effort required for them to cut it up to the right size. So that just seems like madness. So the kit to do it is cheap and you only have to buy it once, and it is a really easy process. So what I'm going to do today is show you how to cut your own mirrors and talk you through the kit involved in doing so. Right, so I'm just going to talk you through the tools you need to get started. First, you're going to need a glass cutter. And I would say don't scrimp on this. In the past, I've just found ones on Amazon that are like a £5 and thought, yeah, that'll do. And they're not very good. This one is really good. The brand is Toyo. I'll put a link to it. I can't remember, but I think it was about £30. Really good quality though. It's got a kind of wheel that is what cuts the groove into the glass. If you push this in, what that is, that releases oil. So you can fill this with glass cutting oil. And that means that wheel is always going to stay lubricated. That's not an essential. The oil is really a tool preservation thing more than a glass cutting thing. I use it because, when you're paying for an expensive tool, you want it to last as long as possible, but you don't have to use it. Secondly is a straight edge. This is a decent sized one. You don't have to get one this big if you're only going to be cutting small pieces. But one thing I do recommend is to mount some kind of self-adhesive velvety type material onto the back of it. So this is going to be sat directly on the glass. So even the slightest imperfection in that aluminium, you're going to end up with scratches all over it. So this I bought in a kind of pack. They're like A4 sheets and they're self-adhesive. Again, I'll put a link to them. But yeah, straight edge and some nice soft velvet on the bottom. The last essential, you're just going to want some clamps. Really, this is for doing big pieces. If you're going to be cutting small pieces, you can just put your hand on one and snap it off. But if you're going to be doing big pieces, you're going to want to clamp this down. So that's what I'd say are your essentials. One of the nice to haves, which I'd certainly recommend getting, is this sort of glass edge sander. This is a little diamond. I think it's about 200 grit. And once you've snapped the glass, you just run this along the edge. It means you're not going to risk cutting your hands on a really sharp edge of glass. So that's pretty much it. Right, so I've measured 8 inches either side and just marked it with a Sharpie. Should have put that on my list of things you need. It's also important to note that the edge of your cutter and the wheel, there's a few mil. So, a Sharpie's not very accurate and I'm not too fussed about millimetre accuracy, but if you are, just keep that in mind when you make your measurements. So let's just clamp this down on here. Not too tight because obviously I don't want to break the glass. So the most important thing is this is one cut. Don't saw it backwards and forwards. You want one clean line and you want to make sure you go right from edge to edge. If you don't get the edges, there's a chance that it will snap and then you'll get a kind of little pointy bit, which can be a bit of a pain in the ass because then you've got to use glass pliers, and I'm not going to go into that today. So starting right at the very edge, pulling nice and firm straight all the way down right to the very edge. So here we go. Right. There we go. Really neat line. So let's bring this down and have a look. So I'm hoping you can see that nice straight score line that I've done, and that's cut right into the glass, that wheel. So now all we need to do is snap it. There's a few ways you can do this. You can do it on the edge of a table and clamp it down. you can put something underneath it and kind of bang it. It depends on the size and depends on the work area you've got. I'm going to put something underneath it here, and then I'm just going to lightly clamp it at this end so that I can then just snap it down. Okay, so I've clamped the back of the mirror down, so that's not going anywhere, that's nice and firm. Then I've just put a straight bit of plyboard right underneath where the cut line is, so you can see that's very close, probably a few mil from the edge. So a little bit of overhang there, and all I'm going to do is a kind of sharp push. Don't like push slowly, give it quite a nice jerking snap. There you go, and that's perfectly cut along that line. So you can see there, really nice and clean, and that is just so easy. And the tools are cheap, it's quick, and it's going to save you trebling the cost of getting a load of mirrors cut, I suppose. So I'm going to crack on, cut some of these to 8x10, and then I may as well just make something just to make the video a bit more interesting.